Generally speaking, the more well-known a dinosaur is, the more popular it becomes. Tyrannosaurus rex, Velociraptor, Brontosaurus. But there are some dinosaurs out there that are less well-known, but are still interesting. Animals from the edges of the world, such as this place, down in the South Pacific. Let me take you on a journey to explore the dinosaurs of the last continent. As far as prehistory goes, Aotearoa, New Zealand is able to boast a lot. From the world's tallest bird and the world's largest eagle, to one of the oldest surviving groups of reptiles on the planet. But when you go back far enough, things can get somewhat murky. But with evidence gathered over the last 160 years, it is possible to get a glimpse of what this country was like millions of years ago. 83 million years ago, during the time of the dinosaurs, a small chunk of land broke away from Australia. This is Zeelandia. At 5 million square kilometres, it is the smallest subcontinent on the planet. Just like the rest of the world, there are dinosaurs here, but they are shrouded in mystery and confusion, thanks to a frustratingly empty fossil record. The history of New Zealand paleontology is a long story with many gaps. For over 100 years, the only fossils found were from marine animals. The first of these was an elasmosaur in the Waipara River, found in 1859 by geologist Thomas Hood. Over the next 2 decades, several more specimens were recovered by workers employed by Hood and Julius von Haast. After the excavation of an unknown marine reptile in the 1860s, a large mosasaur in 1871 was the last significant find, due to the lack of interest in the field for the next century. Until the 1970s, there was a belief that only sea creatures could be found in Zeelandia's rock. Many scientists believe that what is now New Zealand was a small group of tiny islands scattered off the coast of Australia. Surely there could not be dinosaurs in these tiny dots of land? But that all changed with a single rock. Following the discovery of a specimen of Mixosaurus in 1962, the luck of fossil prospectors began to change. In the 1970s, amateur fossil hunters Joan and Pont Whiffen were tramping in the hills of Maunga Taniwha, south of Hawke's Bay, and came across a marine fossil bed in Mongahwanga Stream. In this remote part of the Tuhoi Valley, in 1973, they found the skull of an elasmosaur. But they would strike gold the following year. In 1974, the Whiffens discovered something that would change the entire history of New Zealand paleontology. A pair of fossils lying in the stream bed. A toe bone from a bird-like theropod, and a broken tail vertebra. These belong to the first known dinosaurs of New Zealand. Though it is a mountain stream today, 80 million years ago, Mongahwanga was a forested coastal estuary. It would have looked similar to much of the coast around modern New Zealand, but without many modern flowering plants like kowhai and pohutukawa. Much of the rest of the continent was covered in bush, with podocarp forest more common in the south. This forest surrounded 5 large mountain ranges, all many times the size of the Southern Alps. One of these ranges was on a large island near the southern tip of the mainland. This forest was home to a wide variety of animals, some of which are still alive today. Another successful group of land-based reptiles that lived alongside the dinosaurs was Rhynchocephalia. This group of lizard-like creatures is nearly 240 million years old, but only one species survives today, the tuatara. The animals of Zeelandia lived in a steamy, warm late Cretaceous climate. The average summer temperature is estimated to have been around 32 degrees, with the ocean's surface reaching 65 degrees. This seems rather warm, considering that Zeelandia was less than 3,000 kilometres from the South Pole, much closer than today. This meant that the South lay in darkness for 2 months each year. The toe bone is thought to have come from a raptor, but what the rest of the animal looked like is uncertain. It may have been related to the Unenlagin dromaeosaurs of Madagascar and Argentina, a group characterized by reduced sickle claws and many small teeth. Based on the size of the bone, the New Zealand dromaeosaur would have been around 2 meters long, similar in size to Velociraptor. But the tail vertebra is of great confusion. The bone is thought to have been set halfway down the tail in an animal around 4 to 5 meters long. It is from a theropod, but what kind is unknown. In the 1980s it was loosely classified as a megalosaur. Identifying what it is exactly is a very difficult task. One option for its identity is a Megaraptoran. This is a medium-sized branch of Coelurosaurian theropods closely related to tyrannosaurs that inhabited Gondwanaland. If our theropod is a Megaraptoran, then it may have been related to the Australian Australovenator. Another possibility, based on a find in Australia in 2020, is that the theropod is a Noasaurid, but neither of these options have good evidence. From the late 1970s to the early 2000s, Joan Whiffen and others continued to collect a repertoire of dinosaurs and other extinct reptiles from Wangahonga and beyond. By 2002, the amount of fossils had grown until we had evidence of an entire ecosystem. This extended into the seas around Zeelandia, but the remains were no less fragmentary. In 1975, a large theropod toe bone was dug up. It was thought to be from a carnosaur, about 10 meters long. Now the identity of the creature is hazy. It is possible that there is a larger theropod out there, but we just don't know. This was followed by a series of fragmentary fossils from a sauropod, an ankylosaur, and a dryosaur. This gave the hunters of Wangahonga something to prey on. The sauropod is known from rib fragments. Its size is estimated to be about 12 meters long, making it the smallest of its kind in Australasia. It was a titanosaur, probably related to the Diamantinosaurids of Australia, rather than the Argentine giants. The dryosaur is the easiest of the herbivores to reconstruct. Despite only being known from a chunk of the upper hip bone and a toe, we have a good idea of its size and its possible relatives. The 3-meter animal was possibly related to the dryosaurs of Australia, such as Quantosaurus and Leilanosaura. The ankylosaur is a bit of a puzzle. There are some broken vertebrae known, along with a single rib, but its classification could be messy. In Gondwanaland, there are 2 branches of armoured dinosaurs, Euankylosauria, which includes Australia's Minmi, and Parankylosauria, which contains animals such as Antarctopelta and Cumbarosaurus. Parankylosauria is a recently established clade of armoured dinosaurs. The newest member, Stegosaurus, displays a bizarre tail frond of spikes, in contrast to its long-tailed relatives. Antarctopelta also has evidence of this, but Cumbarosaurus is missing its tail. The lack of any tail bones makes it difficult to place our armoured herbivore. Nearly the entire Mesozoic is unaccounted for. Dinosaurs and other reptiles from the Triassic and Jurassic periods are unknown in New Zealand except for 2 animals. A dig at Mount Potts revealed a specimen of the Triassic ichthyosaur Mixosaurus, and a small finger bone from a late Jurassic theropod is known from Port Waikato. This is all we have, outside of the Cretaceous. The origins of Zeelandia's dinosaurs is a topic that has gone through a number of changes. For many years, it was believed that the animals had made their way to New Zealand from South America 140 million years ago. The understanding of the shape of the supercontinent was different when this assumption was made. We now know that by the mid-Cretaceous, Gondwanaland had split into 3 chunks: Africa and South America, India and Madagascar, and Australasia and Antarctica. This meant that the New Zealand dinosaurs had to come from somewhere else, most likely Australia. The forests that the dinosaurs of Zeelandia dwelt in were widespread and diverse. Cycads and conifers were common, alongside many plants that still exist today. Many Cretaceous angiosperms, such as ginkgo, populated the forests. Unlike many flowering plants in New Zealand today, these species were deciduous, especially in the south. The dinosaurs of this time were witness to a major advancement in flora at the end of the Cretaceous. The end of the Mesozoic saw a rise of a new era of spore-bearing plants. Evidence of this has been found on Pitt Island in the Chathams. This is a type of plant that represents the ancestor of the native New Zealand club moss, one of the few plants that survived the Cretaceous mass extinction. Most of the subcontinent is not visible today. Before the rise of the Southern Alps, around 5 million years ago, the entire landmass was out of the water. This forest-covered land extended down to the closest of the subantarctic islands and north to New Caledonia. The formation of the Alpine Fault may be the reason for the lack of fossils in New Zealand. The two sides were once hundreds of kilometres apart, with Mongahwanga on the coast. Due to the fault's formation, the Hawke's Bay area has joined with the Central Plateau, creating mountains and possibly destroying fossils in the process. The landscape of Zeelandia was home to a myriad of animals, from dinosaurs to the ancestor of the tuatara. But in the sky there was something different. A pterosaur that hunted fish in the warm Cretaceous seas off the coast of Mongahwanga. Like many out-of-the-way places around the globe, the South Pacific was home to many animals that had gone extinct elsewhere. The Northern Hemisphere was ruled by the Azhdarchids and Pteranodonts, but eastern Gondwanaland was home to a group of pterosaurs that had all but disappeared, the unhung words. Joan Whiffen discovered the tooth and arm bones of a pterosaur in 1986. It is estimated to have had a wingspan of about 4 meters across. As a marine animal, it lived on a diet of fish. We can get a good idea of what it might have been like by looking at the Winton Formation in Australia. There we find Ferrodraco, an animal discovered in 2019. The tooth matches those of its Brazilian relatives. The pterosaurs of New Zealand made their living in a very rich sea. This environment was home to between 6 and 9 different species of marine reptile, including turtles, elasmosaurs and ichthyosaurs. The presence of an ichthyosaur in New Zealand has been known about since 1872. The first fossil was estimated at 15 meters long, and fragmentary remains found in the 1970s revealed an animal about 2 to 3 meters long. In 2022, a new fossil was dug up in the Split Rock Formation by a team led by George Young of Canterbury University. The specimen is relatively complete, missing 2 flippers, some of the ribcage, and much of the skull. The Split Rock Formation is dated at 99 to 97 million years ago, not long before the ichthyosaurs went extinct, some 3 million years later. This disappearance opened up opportunities for new predators. But there were bigger reptiles in the oceans. Evidence of these animals has been found from Otago to Mongahwanga. Fossils of these creatures are almost entirely skulls, but 2 nearly complete specimens have been found. At 8 to 12 meters long, this is Tuarangisaurus, a kind of elasmosaur. During the 1970s, the Whiffens excavated many skulls of Tuarangisaurus from Mongahwanga until a complete skeleton was found at Shag Point in 1983. The animal is very closely related to the American Elasmosaurus, and almost equal in size. An elasmosaur is built for chasing fast prey. The skull is flat, allowing the eyes to face upwards. This enables the animal to sit low in the water and see fish silhouetted against the surface. When born, their mouths contain a set of spare teeth ready to replace broken ones. But even in these seas, the elasmosaurs are not the apex predators. The mighty pliosaurs, like Kronosaurus, are long gone, and now the oceans are ruled by a very different type of hunter. This is one of the largest carnivores in the South Pacific seas. Taniwhasaurus, a 12-meter-long giant mosasaur, one of the fastest and most powerful animals of its time. First discovered in 1874, the first of many mighty predators in the Cretaceous seas of Australasia. Taniwhasaurus is one of 4 types of mosasaur that have been found in New Zealand. Originally classified as a 6-meter species of Tylosaurus, it was renamed by Joan Whiffen in 2004. This was after the discovery of Mosasaurus, another 12-meter giant. Zeelandia's waters were also home to 3 smaller species of mosasaur. This is Prognathodon, a worldwide animal with 2 species found in New Zealand. These range in size between 8 and 11 meters. Then there is the 5-meter Rickesaurus. This animal is slightly dubious, some thinking it may be a young Moanosaurus. All we have of it is the skull. The New Zealand mosasaurs were spread far and wide. Moanosaurus especially may have had a range as far as the Southern Ocean. Others, like Prognathodon waiparaensis, seem to be more regionally isolated, but that did not stop them becoming the most powerful predators in the seas of the Cretaceous. The diets of mosasaurs varied. Larger species, like Moanosaurus, were built for taking on large prey. This included turtles, elasmosaurs, and even smaller mosasaurs. Prognathodon has teeth designed for taking on armored animals, such as ammonites, turtles, and crustaceans. This genus particularly had a very strong bite for getting through shells. The smallest mosasaurs, like Rickesaurus, would have predominantly eaten fish and belemnites, a relative of the squid. The paleo-environment of Zeelandia survived for an incredibly long time. The Mongahuanga site alone shows almost 20 million years of dinosaur history. From air to sea to land, reptiles and other animals flourished. But then, one day, as we all know, something happened. In 6 locations around the country, there is a layer of soot in the rock, evidence of a cataclysm. Forest fires that raged across the entire landmass is the main evidence in New Zealand for the KPG mass extinction, the end of the rule of the dinosaurs and the start of the Cenozoic era. In 1997, Joan Whiffen was awarded an honorary doctorate in paleontology, 23 years after she put New Zealand on the map. She died in 2009 at 87 years old, but left behind a legacy that would last a lifetime. New Zealand still has a whole host of fossil hunters continuing to put the puzzle back together. Sometimes nature even does it for us. In 2023, Cyclone Gabrielle partially unearthed the skeleton of an elasmosaur in the Taniwha Range. These ngaro tonga, or hidden treasures, give us a glimpse into Mesozoic life in Aotearoa, land of the long white cloud.